Hi, this is Lauren Rivera. I play Sienna in Terrifier 2, and you're listening to the Horror Squad podcast.
Hello, welcome back to the Horror Squad podcast, episode number 282. Tonight we're doing a double feature of Ringu and The Ring, the original version and the American remake. I'm your co-host Todd. We have Steve. We are Joe's tonight. He's dealing with some stuff, so we wish him the best. What's up, Steve?
Not too much. Definitely wishing Joe all the best with what he's dealing with. We're going to miss him this week, but, we're carrying on the show on. This is actually my pick. So we each decide to pick like something mainstream as whatever. When we have like filler weeks when there's nothing out in the theater, which it's a pretty dull moment right now in horror. Like there's not much coming out. So we kind of go through a theme and each pick our films. Joe picked Blair Witch Project last week. I'm picking The Ring, which we decided to also do Ringu because I like to have the contrast of international versus American remakes, and then Todd will pick the next one. So I'm curious what you're gonna pick. But yeah, I'm doing good.
I'm curious what I'm going to pick as well. We will know by the end of the show. And then I picked House of Thousand Corpses, the one before that. So I don't know. Like, do I want to go one of my favorite movies? Do I want to go a good discussion topic?
Yeah, it's always a tricky thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all goes on mood. I do want to ask our audience something. So last week we had an interview with a comic book writer for the series The Redemption, which the new comics coming out June 21st. And I'm curious, do people like when we do something outside of kind of our comfort zone? We tend to only do kind of directors and actors from horror movies. So I thought it'd be cool to try something different. So I'd just like to get feedback on how do you want us to do more like kind of out of the box things, different types of creators? We had Patty that one time. That's Joe's mom, who was incredible as someone who can
so cool
speak to ghosts. Yeah, so there's also I'm gonna try setting it up, but I know someone who knows an exorcist. So that's something I think would be interesting as well. So yeah,
is it Russell Crowe?
Yeah, it's Russell Crowe. I didn't want to say it, but when
man, imagine,
right? That'd be amazing.
Tell us about Gladiator 2.
Exactly. So just curious for feedback on stuff like that.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right. You want to get to some what watch?
Sure.
Have you watched anything?
I have watched something,
nice.
And thankfully I did, since we had, the shorter episode tonight. And this one's been on my Tubi to watch list for a while. I know, like, I'm sure you do, and a lot of our friends out there, like you see a movie on Tubi that you're searching out, and then you're like, oh, cool, got it. And we put it on my watch list, and then it's like suggested movies.
Right.
Like, fuck, this looks cool, and then I got it. And then it's like suggested movies for that. It's like never like that marketing strategy they did with the rabbit hole is perfect for that service, because they have so much shit, which led me to this 2003 indie film called Hey, Stop Stabbing Me, which is a cool freaking title. Yeah, essentially it's about a young college graduate, and we meet him when he's in the dorm and he has to get out of his dorm and go, find a real job and all that stuff. So he answers an ad that he finds on the side of the road for a one-room apartment or whatever in a house that he can go rent. And it's just like a weird kind of like surreal experience. Like everything falls into place. Like he goes to the park, he meets a girl. He goes to the house, he's instantly accepted in the house, and he can rent it. He meets a guy that picks him up to take him for a ride, and he offers him a job. So all of his questions are being answered in his young life, but everything is also sinister. He grows to suspect that one of the homeowners or his roommates is killing off the other roommates, because when he gets to his room, it's fully furnished. It has pictures of another man. It has clothing. He's like, hey, I forget the guy's name. He's like, hey, where's Craig? He's like, oh, he joined a cult. And then he looks outside and he sees Craig's like a headstone gravesite in the backyard. He's like, what's that? He's like, oh, that's just reminding me of all my friends. He's like, okay. Ultra low budget, but for such a low budget, like obviously like a college movie, it's very well acted. Like you can tell these are all friends, that they had some kind of film background. And it turns out the guy that stars in this actually co-wrote Sonic the Hedgehog, something else that's been in the theater, like that's pretty popular. So he actually went on to have a pretty good career after this. So yeah, is it low budget? Yeah. Is it kind of silly? Is it really skimpy on horror? Yes. But I don't know, man. I was like always looking forward to the next step in the next scene, because it just went from weirdness to weirdness. And the director, the star, he wrote Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Violent Night. He
Hmm.
has some credits with Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. So yeah, he's actually
Wow.
turned out to be a really big filmmaker there. So that's Hey, Stop Stabbing Me over on Tubi.
So is it the name or the poster that got you into this?
It was the freaking name.
Okay, because it's either one will get you on
Yeah.
Tubi, I find. Yeah,
Yeah, their posters are legit, just like Sharks of the Corn, amazing poster, terrible
yeah.
movie.
Shark Exorcist, and maybe it's
Yeah,
poster terrible movie. Velocipaster, amazing poster terrible movie. Like
yeah.
it's a bad rabbit hole you can get down on Tubi. Someone's making bank though as some kind of poster maker out there. I
There's
don't know
some
who it
like
is, but
legit artists, yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That one guy who's just like, man, he's raking it in. All right, so I have two tonight. So my first one is one I watched over on Shudder. It's brand new and from 2023, and it's called Brooklyn 45. So this is the story of a group of military people who are summoned to like a dinner that one of them brought him to. I think it's like the captain or at least or the commander or whoever is like the highest ranking officer of them, and he brings them to this place. It's right after World War II. It's like around Christmas time after in 1945, and he brings them there on. They're not really sure why, so they're kind of like, okay, why are you? Is this just like a reunion? Like what is this? It turns out that he wants to do a séance for his dead wife, who also had some kind of affiliation with what they were doing in the military. But there's something a little more sinister at play here. And I don't want to say it because it's really interesting and it goes in unexpected ways. But it's basically a one location film where they're in this room the whole time. There are some horror elements because the seance brings in some pretty legit looking ghosts at times. And there are some surprises. It stars Jeremy Holm, who people have been a long time listener of this podcast, is the first guest that we ever hosted. I think it was in the Three Guys days at
The
one of
Ranger.
the Ranger. That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Who's fantastic in it, by the way. Like he's probably one or two top like performances for a male actor this year so far. A really fantastic role, and I enjoyed the movie. You know, these one location films can sometimes be tricky because you're really relying on story and acting and dialogue, and you're not like there's a lot of other tricks that you can't use to kind of make the movie interesting, so you're doing a lot, and this movie does a really good job of it. So I think people should check this one out. It's not like super horror, but thematically it is. You know, like there's not a lot of big horror scenes, but when there are some, they hit hard. So that's why I like it so much. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. So that's on Shudder.
Sweet. All right, so my last one is a book called Helldivers, written by Mr. Nicholas Sansbury Smith. 95% through it on my Kindle, and essentially it is about post-apocalyptic, where the world nuked itself, like any other nuclear war books. The difference is like think helicarriers from like the Avenger series, like those flying aircraft carriers. The remnants of humanity survive on those, and down below on Earth is like a hellscape. There's like mutant creatures because it's set 200 years after the war. There's superstorms, things like that. And hell divers are dudes and girls that dive onto the planet for a short amount of time to get like supplies and like repair their ship and things like that. And it's the last ship out of these floating structures to survive. So if they die, then humanity dies, right? So it's pretty cool because it mixes a lot of things I like, which is like a post-apocalyptic setting, military fiction, mixed with mutants, because it all meshes into one. And it turns out to be a really fun book if you're looking for like an action-packed sci-fi / mutant horror with some military fighting stuff in it. Then I think you definitely like it. It's Helldivers, written by Nicholas Sansbury Smith.
It does sound interesting. Cool. All right. So my last one is a movie from 1973, which I also watched on Shudder, and that is The Wicker Man. So we are fast approaching our top of the 70s decade episode, maybe about a month from now. So I'm trying to go back and trying to fill up my 7 to 10 like films. You know, my 1 to 6 is really solid. 7 to 10 could go either way. So I'm kind of rewatching things that I thought maybe could make them. So The Wicker Man is a story of a police officer who goes to an island to investigate a missing person. And as he gets on the island, he notices that there are a lot of weird shit going on that island. Basically, it's run by a cult who's run by Christopher Lee, who is very charismatic in the role of the leader of the island. People know Christopher Lee, of course, as Dracula in the Hammer films, Count Dooku in Star Wars, and Saruman in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And it's basically this police officer investigating the disappearance of a girl. And there are clues as to whether or not she's dead, what's really going on in this island. He starts taking exception to the fact that they're not living the Christian fundamental values that he was raised with. So he keeps threatening everyone with arrest and all sorts of stuff. So they're trying to kind of playing a game with him of cat and mouse. Is the girl alive? Is she dead? Is she missing? Was she ever there? A lot of mystery like that. So for those who've seen it, spoiler alert, I guess, for a movie from 50 years ago, it turns out that the whole thing is about a setup to get a virgin, which the cop is, and sacrifice to the god so they can have a harvest within the next year in probably one of the biggest, I guess, horror iconic images of the Burning Man and, the effigy. And a lot of cult films have kind of taken cues from this movie. I'd seen this probably around college, so that's 25 years ago. And I remember liking it, but I didn't remember enough of it to make an opinion on whether or not it could be on my top 10. And I gotta say, I really like it. I know Todd didn't. I saw his Letterboxd score, but I just really love cult films. I love to see the rules of what the cults are doing and their lore and why they do certain things and their customs and all like that. I that just really fascinates me. It's the same reason I like Midsommar so much. So I was really into it. There are some negatives. I was not a big fan of the singing. There's a lot of musical numbers in this. And as far as singing goes, it wasn't terrible. I've seen worse, but I still don't want it in the movie. And also, I didn't care for the cop at all, or the police officer. And that's a problem, because if I don't care about his fate, then the whole ending is kind of less impactful, because it's okay, whatever, good for him. I really didn't care for him. So those are two lows, but overall, solid movie, and I do recommend people checking it out. So that's The Wicker Man, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars over on Letterboxd.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched that too. It's got to be, shoot, maybe over 15 years. So definitely need to give it a rewatch. I remember not liking most of it except for the final scene where the betrayal happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really effective. I think he starts singing when he's getting burned too, and it's
Yeah.
oh shit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but awesome. We got our 70s list coming up in about a month?
Yeah, about a month. We're gonna start soliciting for some lists also from the listeners. So start preparing them, because it will be coming fast. How's your list coming along? Do you have an idea of what you're putting on there?
I mean, I know what my top 2 are going to be. Those are pretty easy to pick. Yeah. I think the challenge is going to be 6 through 10, which is usually what the challenge is with these lists anyway. Because you got your top 3 easily with all the decades and stuff. But yeah, I got to definitely rewatch a couple things here and there.
Yeah, my top 1, 2, 3, 4 are all could be number ones. They're just so fucking good. It's amazing that they all came out in the same decade. Yeah. And then my next 4, they're good, really good, but they could switch, potentially. And then it's the last 2 or 3 that I'm kind of struggling with. They're nothing that's really speaking to me that should absolutely be there. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of research to try to find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that the overall list will have Exorcist in at number 1.
I would think. You know what though? Halloween could also be there.
Yeah,
they're two. They could be both
iconic.
Yeah, it's 2 really big hitters in horror. So yeah. I could see either being number 1 on the ultimate list.
Yeah, I think probably Jaws is the best film made, overall best made film in the 70s for horror. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's going to be the overall number 1. I think people are going to be more traditional with it.
I agree. Yeah, it's tough. Obviously I know what yours is and I know what mine. That it's an easy pick, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what people put on there, and I'm particularly interested in what they put. Like you said, 6 to 10, right? That's kind of where I'm not as sure what people will put on. So
yeah,
there aren't as many obvious choices as previous decades. I'm really looking forward to this list. I think it's the last comfortable list that we're doing for me. After this, I'm starting to go out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, 60s is gonna be rough. There's gonna be a lot of new watches in that one for sure.
Yeah, and that's good, right?
Yeah.
I'm happy to come out of my comfort zone and start watching more 60s stuff. I've already started, and then we're gonna do 50s and probably then just 50 and below. We're not gonna go through
Well, we
like
can
the
do the
40s.
1910s and
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting, but one problem at a time. 70s
yeah.
is.
I mean, shoot, I already know what my number one for the 60s will be. That's an easy one.
Yeah. Top two are probably like set in stone for me for the 60s, but
What would be your second one? I'm trying to think.
well, I might as well tell you because it could change.
Sure.
Psycho and
Oh,
and Night of the Living Dead are probably going to be top two.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Exactly. All right. So there's no Joe this week. That doesn't mean we can't have a cup of something. So if we're going to have a cup of anything, it's going to be from Deadly Grounds Coffee.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds Coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds Coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
All right, so we got a double feature tonight. Steve is going to lead us off with the original version of this movie.
I will. So the first one is Ringu, 1998, directed by Hideo Nakata. So this is the story of a woman. She is researching a cursed video and starting to interview teenagers about it. And when her niece Tomoko dies of sudden heart failure, is what they call it in the movie, with an unnaturally horrified expression on her face, Riko decides to investigate what's going on. She finds out that some of Tomoko's friends have also passed away in similar fashions. So she goes to the cabin where they were staying and she finds a tape. And on that tape is some really weird imagery and some like really odd stuff. And then she gets a call that basically tells her that her doom has been sealed and she has 7 days to live. So the rest of the movie is spent her trying to figure out what's going on with the tape. She shows the tape to her ex-husband to get him in on the investigation. And then, unfortunately, her son also watches the tape, which makes the whole situation more dire and more urgent for her as they try to figure out what's going on, how to stop this curse, and leads them all the way to a well where they find Sadako, which is the demon in this particular movie. So
Sudoku?
Sadako is
Sudoku is like that game.
Right,
that
all
game.
right. Sudoku, you mean?
It's Sudoku.
Yeah, I'm like
they're just playing in the well. You gotta be Sudoku.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, so that's basically the story of the film. So what do you think of Ringu?
All right, second time for me. First time watched it when I was younger, and this kicked off the J horror American remix, right? There was this one, and then The Grudge. I think 2 years later, that really fucking kicked things off, where every single thing that was Japanese or Korean got American remake in like 2 months.
Right.
Yeah, but I like the tagline here: one curse, one cure, 1 week to find it. Like I was trying to channel my original thoughts, and I think they're pretty similar to what I think now, and I think it's really slow. And I think having seen the remake first did this one an injustice, because without this one, you don't have the remake, and this builds a lot of things on it. But my initial thoughts are there's a lot of cool stuff that culminates at the end, but some of the stuff we go through to get there is a little weak, especially, and this probably comes back to having seen the remake again, or remake first, is that the shock, like the open mouths and like the scared looking bodies, isn't as effective as in the remake, and I think that damages my view on it. Overall, I think it's passable, but nowhere near like as terrifying as this was made out to be. Even like, I don't know, I think some of this movie does things a little bit better than an American remake. I think the tension's better, but I did have a question. The boyfriend or the ex-husband,
Right.
first of all, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Secondly, when he walks into the house, he does this weird pause in like the entryway, and like scary music plays. Why did he, what was that for?
I don't know, just to amplify tension, I guess. It's like the scary ex-husband, or
Scary
it's
ex-husband.
right.
It was like, oh, I'm like, is he in on it? No,
Mhm.
he's a long-haired bad boy.
Right.
It's like, okay, cool.
No, exactly. Yeah, so I actually, it's good for this discussion. I saw this movie first. I remember I was in film school when The Ring, like the American one, came out, and my teacher made us watch Ringu in class before The Ring came out, so that we can have like a contrast between, American remake
Cool
versus
teacher.
Japanese. Yeah. Well, his whole thing was international film, so it fit into that class like perfectly. And I remember being very like, I really liked this film when I first saw it, and I haven't seen it since. So I was really curious because I like The Ring, the American version, a lot. I wanted to revisit this one, which is why I ended up picking it. And I gotta say, it was so impactful the first time, but now having seen the American version, I feel it's lost a lot of its impact because, as we'll talk about later, I prefer the American version, which is actually pretty rare for the Japanese horror ones. I usually prefer the originals. In this particular case, I think the American one did a lot of stuff better. Just right in the beginning, the very first scene, I felt the tension wasn't as solid as the American version, and the way that they end the first scene is like this weird, like freeze frame, negative shot of the girl's face as it blurs like out of focus and then goes into the next scene, which is just, I don't know, it feels so film school, like it's not an effective
Yeah,
method of conveying fear.
it feels cheap.
Yeah, no,
It feels
exactly.
cheap. Yeah.
Then the stuff that's actually on the tape didn't feel as like freaky as it did at that time. Now remember, I mean, we're talking about, I was in film school, it was probably like 2001, like a year before the other one came out. So we didn't have YouTube. We didn't see a bunch of freaky shit on TikTok or YouTube or all these fucking things. So at that time, it was like, holy shit, this is a really like deranged looking tape.
Yeah.
Now in 2023, it's like I've seen a ton of shit like this. Just scrolling on TikTok, it's not as impactful as it used to be, and I feel that it wasn't as scary as what they show in the American version of The Ring. So that's kind of the problem with watching this film this time around, is I couldn't help but compare the film to the original. Now, I still think it's a good film. There's a lot to love about it. I think the last like 20 minutes are very effective when they actually end up going to the ghost's like lair, which is Sadako, who's like kind of the exactly the Samara of this story. And there are some differences which I thought was interesting. The story doesn't play out the same way. This one has more to do with her father as opposed to the mother in the American remake. And yeah, it's just, I think having seen the American one kind of soiled this film a little bit, but I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I felt a little bit bored with this film. I did like a lot of the aspects, like in the well, even though I thought it was so fucking funny that they were draining the well one bucket at a time.
Oh my god! And the fucking two bucket. Why are there two buckets? The other bucket is doing nothing. It's just there. Like there's no point. It takes 2 seconds to fill up one bucket. You don't need two buckets.
Yeah, like all right, let's give this bucket a rest.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's basically what it was.
Yeah.
Like it makes no freaking sense that he made the woman do all the heavy lifting. He's just like down there fucking filling a bucket,
And he has the audacity to get mad and then hit her.
Right. Yeah. Oh my god.
Dude, he's a piece of fucking trash. Not only does he bail on his family, but like he can't even fucking organize a bucketing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I hate that motherfucker.
He hit her hard. Like, I was like, damn, that's
he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. I wish. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck him. But I think too, I might have just set the original up for failure because I watched the American the version like a day before I watched this one. So the stories are pretty much beat for beat. You know what I mean? As far as it goes. Yeah. Or close enough where I'm like, all right, I just saw this yesterday. Now I'm seeing the Japanese version and it's a little weaker, so I'm a little bored. But yeah, the bucket is hilarious. I do like the apparitions that they do in the Japanese version. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that aspect of it. And I thought another unintentionally hilarious scene was where they were showing what's her face getting assaulted and thrown
In the well.
in the well. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you hear that stupid ass sound effect, like
Yeah.
boink.
Right. You're right.
Like, why are they cheaping out on like certain things? It's crazy.
Yeah, I love that that the mom threw herself into a volcano though. Like,
That's fucking so like,
yeah,
jeez.
way more effective than
Yeah.
what they did in the American one. Like, yeah, it's just I don't know. It felt, and I rewatched actually Ringu first. This particular, I
Okay.
went in
Yeah,
order,
should have done that.
which probably why I probably have a higher score because I didn't go back and like re-rate it after. It's like I'd already seen it, went on my initial kind of thoughts to it, but I still remembered the ring enough to kind of keep thinking like, damn,
Yeah.
this is not as effective as the ring, but it's still a passable film, but it's just not. It's lost a lot of its potency over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
All right, let's go into The Ring, and then I guess we'll rate them both.
Yeah, sure.
So 2002, Gore Verbinski, Naomi Watts starring. And yeah, it's the same exact setup. But now we're obviously an American audience here, and we have two young girls having a sleepover, talking about this scary tape. And of course, they think it's a joke at first, but soon after they get a phone call, and eventually, one of the girls is fucking killed. And then we flash to Naomi Watts, who's a reporter, and then she goes to the funeral and starts talking to the girl's friends, like, hey, like, what happened? I'm cool, I'm young, I'm hip, you can tell me what's going on. I used to smoke weed, stuff like that. And then they tell her, like, yeah, oh, and Adrian, what's that kid's name? Adam Brody? Adam,
Which one? The the guy.
the dude, I forget,
Yeah,
he's in like
yeah,
a lot of stuff, but
right.
makes a little cameo, and he's like, yeah, they all died, bro. Like, and it's like typical high school kids who are able to rent a cabin, which makes no fucking sense. But yeah, then she starts investigating, eventually goes to a cabin where these kids had hung out and watched the tape. She ends up watching it, gets a call saying you're going to die in 7 days, and goes on her investigation. Same thing with the Japanese version. She's got a estranged ex-boyfriend slash husband. They have a child together. The child in the Japanese version and the American version is kind of off. He's a little different. And I was pleased to see that was Jedediah from the Texas
It
Chainsaw
was,
Massacre
yeah,
remake.
it was.
As soon as I saw him, I'm like, that's Jedediah. Holy shit.
Right.
But yeah, both the kids are they're a little off. I guess I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, this one obviously has like one of the most iconic 2 seconds in the 2000s film where the mother of the girl that was killed in the beginning says, like, I found my daughter dead or whatever, and then it flashes to inside the closet with the girl's mouth is just like bent backwards open, and it's a really effective scene. It reminds me of the scene from Signs when the alien walks by and there's no reason
Yeah.
for it to be as terrifying as it is, but in this one too, you're like, oh fuck, because it's just jarring. Yeah, then like I said, we meet the boyfriend, and he thankfully he tells us, the audience, and Naomi Watts is like, yeah, this is just a fucking college kids fan film, which is exactly what we're thinking too. And I'll leave it at that. And then we follow them as they do an investigation. They're trying to figure out what this tape is about. What'd you think about it?
I love this movie. Like I really enjoy this movie. I love investigation horror, so that's a big one. I love ghost stuff, so that's another one. So it's really checking some of my favorite boxes. That closet scene is so damn effective, even to this day. And I remember seeing it the first time, thinking like, "Wow, that is a good scare." That's probably one of my top like 10 scares ever in film. I think it's so simple too, and that's what I love about it. The same thing as you said in the Signs with the Brazil footage tape. It's just so simple and so effective. So yeah, that and the whole beginning I thought was better. It was just well done. It was almost like Scream. It gave me a lot of Scream vibes. The way they were dressed, the phone ringing, of course. All that stuff. So that was all good.
But just to interrupt you real quick,
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of the Scary Movie
Right, yeah. Rip off,
parody of it. Yeah.
yeah. I agree. Yeah. And then you talk about the boy, man. That boy is good. He's a great friggin' actor. It kind of gave me Sixth Sense vibes, especially at the beginning when they go to the funeral. It really felt like
for
Cole
sure.
going to the funeral and trying to kind of investigate the little girl's death and everything like that. I got some heavy vibes with that, and the score is also really good in this, which amplifies scene like that one. So I really, really like that. I did laugh though because in the Japanese version, when the stuff starts happening, they give you the date, September 13th, 1992, and that's how they do it. And each day, September 14th, 19. Where in this one they have to write day one because it's like It's like, okay, our audience won't get that if I put the date, they're gonna know what day it is.
Yeah, they're too dumb.
So that made me laugh. I think people would have gotten it, but I don't know. It's just one of those stupid little things.
Yeah.
I loved in this one how elements of the tape were starting to manifest in real life. Like at one point, she sees a ladder. Now, whether or not that ladder should have been there is a whole thing. Like there was a worker actually working, but it didn't seem like, I don't know what the fuck he was doing up there.
What was
like,
he working on?
Yeah, that's what I'm
The
wondering.
brick?
Like, exactly. It didn't really make sense.
Blacker.
Same thing with if a fly, it at one point like flips as if it's on the film, then it like comes out of the TV. Like super effective. I really love stuff like that. That just made the whole thing a little bit better. Little goofy moment though. So she's looking up lighthouses because she stretches the tape so that she can see a lighthouse, which, okay, I don't know about that. But anyway, even if she can do that, she stretches the tape, she sees this lighthouse, she looks at the lighthouse book, and almost immediately finds that exact lighthouse. Because apparently there are only like 80 lighthouses in the world, and that book had them all. So kudos to finding that was perfect lighthouse.
She's an investigative reporter, dude.
Apparently the best of the best.
Solve the JFK thing. Get out there.
There are also some really dumb moments that I had to write about. Her relationship with her boss. It's such a cliche that news reporters have the worst relationship, but also the best relationship with their boss. He like fires her, and she's like, "No, I'm not fired." "Yeah, you're fired." No, I'm not. I got a good story.
I'm doing whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, "Okay, what's the story?" And then he just lets her go. But they never mention that again. That's the only mention of that. Completely no point at all for that.
They needed to show that she was feisty.
Apparently, yeah.
Hey, Naomi Watts though.
Oh,
damn.
Yeah.
For sure. God, I'm not firing her.
But exactly, yeah.
What's wrong with you?
And speaking of feisty, how about that cashier at the store who just looks at the guy? She's like, "You're gonna die," because he bought cigarettes.
Yeah, I was like, "What the fuck's happening?"
Yeah, it's just super intense.
Cabin number 12 is a fucking dump.
Well, yeah, right.
I was like, this is the cat. In the Korean one, it's nice. Or I mean, sorry, Japanese one, it's nice and it's cool. This one's just a piece of shit. Like you would expect a deadite to fucking possess you in that one. Like, don't stay there. Right? There's definitely a haunted VHS tape there.
Exactly. Yeah, it's and I also loved the creepy drawings that the little kid was doing. But that's another big like trope of especially like the early 2000s or late 90s of the kid drawing.
Kids are always drawing creepy shit
all the time. Like they do it all right up to like Stranger Things. It's such a trope that they had to like mimic it there. So yeah, that's another thing that happens. One thing I do really love about this one though is the slow reveal of Samara, because it really starts with the mother. Like they're investigating the mother, Anna Morgan, for a long time, and it's only slowly starts to bring in Samara into the story. And I thought that was good because it changes the narrative of the film and makes the thing a little bit more creepy and kind of keeps my interest, because after a while you kind of know everything about Anna Morgan, but then they go into this whole other kind of side story, which brings us to an island with Brian Cox. So Brian Cox, another great actor. So they go to Brian Cox's house, and she's like totally just invading his space, to asking him like super bad questions. She's fucking like just taking tapes and watching shit in his house, like totally inappropriate. But poor
that's
Brian
also a trope of this time. People going into people's houses.
Yeah, as if they own it, right?
Yeah. And being like ashamed or like scared, like, well, you're in their fucking house. Can we talk about Brian Cox and his elaborate suicide? he gets every fucking electronic he owns. I'm like, you can just do it with one. You don't need every fucking.
Oh my god, it's the most elaborate electrocution I've ever seen. It's so weird.
He's dedicated.
He's even like he hits her with a power bar. So he's even getting like more power bars, like
more power. Fucking the origin story of Electro, practically. It's like, geez.
Exactly. It's like, oh my god, that made me laugh so hard. I was like, what the fuck? And it was so stupid that his death just made me laugh, because of how ridiculous it was.
Like he was working on it for like 3 hours, probably.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, this will kill me for sure, but let me add the fucking record player. Hold on.
Yeah, it's like if Clark Griswold put all of his fucking Christmas decorations on so he could kill himself in the tub. really, really, really made no sense. I love the room in the barn, like super creepy.
Oh yeah, very
Where,
cool.
yeah, that was an effective scene right
It
there.
reminded me of the House of Wax remake, how it was just kind of surreal.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a good one. Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff like that in the remake. It was like a serious film, but inadvertently made me laugh a lot because of these like kind of weird moments that I don't know if they were trying to make us laugh, but probably not, right?
Probably not. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff like that. Eventually, we lead to Samara, same thing, in a well. Although this one, the well is like under. It's like they were hiding the well under the floor, which I think is better. Like the way that they find the well in this one, where in the Japanese they just go to the house and the well is just under like a few fucking pieces of wood and
Yeah.
no problem there. I love the whole thing, picking up Samara's dead body within the well. You know, I think that's as effective in both films, though. It's something they do in both, so I like that. But I do like the ending of this one a lot better. It's a way more visual ending than the Japanese one. So, what do you think of the endings of the Ring films?
I think once again the American one hits it better. I think it has a lot to do with the little boy, you know, his performance saying like, "You're not supposed to help her," blah blah blah, and then a fucking really cool scene of her coming out of the TV. That's like
Yeah.
this movie has two iconic scenes.
Yep.
We got the closet and we have her coming out of the TV. Is so fucking effective, and I really like the reveal too, where it's like, okay, Naomi Watts and the son, they're cool. You're not motherfucking cool, motherfucker. You're a piece of shit. And she comes to kill his ass. I think that's a super, super cool scene.
I agree. But I have one question. Does Samara pose the bodies? Because that dude dies on the ground. Like he sees her, he is like on his ass on the floor as he gets scared. But when Naomi Watts goes to see him, he's in a chair.
True.
And the other girl, same thing. Like I don't think she went to the closet. She probably died. Like so, is Samara like just posing the bodies for effect? That's something I didn't understand.
You know what? Yeah, now that you mention it, there's no feasible way or reason that he would be in that chair unless someone put him there.
Yeah, and the only person who could put him there is Samara.
Yeah, she's like, all right,
no, it's got to be picture perfect. yeah, exactly. So that's, you know, whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I do like that they very quickly flash the guy's face as well, but very quickly, because in the actual scene when she finds him, she turns him around, but they don't show his face. It kind of from the back of his head onto her reaction. But later on, you see a flash of it, and I thought that was effective. You didn't need to show it in that scene, and that almost worked better, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I thought that ending was a lot more effective than the Japanese one, which is basically it's basically saying that, you know, if you pass on the tape to someone else, you'll survive, and they're deciding who they're going to pass on the tape to between the kid and the mom.
Yeah. We have Joe's thoughts, right?
Oh, that's right. We have Joe's thoughts as well. Here, I'll read Joe's thoughts here. All right. So here are Joe's thoughts for Ringu. Quite dull and subdued, with not much as far as frights go. But the last act does pick up significantly and saves it from being a complete loss. He gave it 2.5 out of 5.
And his thoughts on The Ring: improves on just about everything. Better intro, more scares, and more of a sense of dread throughout. I also like the changes they made to Samara's backstory. There are some pacing issues at 2 hours. It's a bit overlong, but it still holds up well. 3.5 out of 5. You know, we didn't mention the length of The Ring.
Right. Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about 25 minutes too long.
I agree. Yeah, it drags on a lot in the middle. So
yeah, mostly when she's like going like the horses and shit like that.
Right. Although we have to mention that horse scene. That horse scene was friggin' intense.
It's cool. Yeah.
That horse scene on the boat. See, there's a lot to this when you really like think about it. Yeah. She like spooks a horse and it just goes fucking ape shit on the boat. And then
leave the horse alone, lady.
Yeah, no kidding. Like
seriously, I don't know. This isn't your stuff, you entitled fuck.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sitting at a 3 for The Ring and a 2.5 for Ringu. I like them both, but Ringu definitely shows its age.
Mm-hmm. And I gave a 3 to Ringu and a 4 to The Ring. I really like The Ring. I find it so effective, and yeah, I'd watch it again. You know, like. And
was it in your 2000s list?
I don't remember. It might have been. Yeah. It was low if it was, but because a 4 is not like top 10 material. Yeah, I think, but yeah, I definitely appreciate this movie a lot. So we just have a few questions. So you can ask us those questions on social media at the Horror Squad Podcast, or of course, you can ask us on Discord, which all you have to do is ask us for a link we will provide to you, and you will have access to the greatest group of horror fans anywhere in the world. So the first series of questions are from Shaylin. That's little 3 chord me. If you were cursed with only 7 days left to live, would you fight to see if there was a way to survive the curse, or accept your fate and live up those 7 days to the fullest?
That's assuming that you even know, right?
Well, in this case, you do, right? So let's say you're in
That's
her
like we
shoes.
don't know though.
Right, yeah.
I would probably be more skeptical, and knowing me, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna sit in the corner of this room with a gun on day 7, and if she comes out of the fucking TV, let's see if this works. I don't think I'd have the will or the know-it-all to figure something out like that.
Yeah, I doubt I'd leave my house. Like, I'd probably online look a lot, try to figure things out online, but yeah, I wouldn't go to her length to figure this out, I don't think. But I'm also a skeptical person in nature, so I always try to look into things before I make decisions, and I'd probably die before I came to a conclusion. So
I
yeah,
definitely wouldn't be poking around people's houses or
no,
fucking with horses and
spooking
stuff.
horses, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And our next question: share us with us one or a few things that are on your horror bucket list, or what I like to call a farm list. So what's left on your horror bucket list, just in general?
There's only one, man. It's David MG, plays Flyboy from Dawn of the Dead. He's up there in age. He's had some poor health, and I've missed him in a couple cons. Like, I've been there, and he was scheduled, and he was sick. So I'm crossing every finger I have that he makes an appearance, because I will fucking travel anywhere to meet him, because he's my last guy to meet for Dawn of the Dead, and he's fucking amazing. So hopefully I get to meet him.
Yeah, autograph wise, it'd probably be the same thing. David MG is pretty much like at the top of the list. I'd also have like Andrew Lincoln from The Walking Dead up there. But as far as my like just generalized horror bucket list, right now I think making something and putting it on Tubi would be something I would love to do. Actually, Todd and I just got our first IMDb credit recently, so our IMDb pages are now up, and I'd love to see one of our own films on there as opposed to someone else's film. So
Yeah, and little teaser, we'll give you guys more information once we dedicate time to it. But Steve and I, and Joe as well, are gonna look to make a film with everyone's help. So stay tuned, because you can get on Tubi, and it'd be so fucking cool to have. Like, we gotta hire that poster guy.
yeah, absolutely, we have to hire that. Our whole budget is going to be the poster guy.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
rest
it's
is
gonna be
going to be
fun.
done with fucking duct tape and
Yeah.
sticks. You know?
I'm gonna use my basement for every location.
Exactly. Exactly.
We're on a spaceship.
Right. And we'll just call it Amityville something, and there you go. Yeah,
Get at least 10 people to watch it.
exactly. Just a completionist out there. You
Yeah.
get those people. It's good. All right, and our next series of questions are from Eric. I'm sure it'll be mentioned in the episode, but what's your favorite American J horror remake? For me, you know what? It might be this one. Between this one and I also really like what's Juong's American
The
one?
Grudge.
The Grudge. Yeah, I also really like The Grudge, which actually I didn't know if you knew this, but they made a Japanese version of The Grudge versus The Ring.
I
So
know
it's
that. I never saw it though.
yeah, I'm gonna try to watch them all. There's 3 Ring movies. I think there's 3 Juong movies as well, and then there's the Versus movie, so I'm very curious.
Yeah, I had to cheat and look up a list, and the ones I'm looking at aren't that good. So I'm gonna stick with The Ring,
Yeah.
because Pulse, the remake, is terrible, and the original is fucking awesome. One Missed Call, Dark Water,
The Eye.
The Eye with Jessica Alba. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll go with The Ring.
Yeah, I would agree with that. His next question: what is it about Japanese horror and Korean horror that sets it apart from its American counterparts? Are we too timid?
I don't know. Looking at this one, the American version is definitely more effective scare wise. So I think if you go, what is Takahashi Miike or something like that? He does some really good gore effects, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
So, what would you say is the big difference between the two? Like, what sets them apart?
Currently, I think Korean films like to get a little bit emotional, Like if you just look at Train to Busan, like it's
Mm.
horror, and then let's try to make the audience cry. I think that tends to do it a lot, and I think Americans generally try to play it a little bit safe, opposed to even other foreign films. It doesn't have to be Japanese or Korean. I think originals are a little bit darker for whatever reason.
You know, for me, it comes down to a cultural thing. You know, Canadian American, to me, it's almost the same thing. Like the movies are very similar one to the other. It's like I was raised that what we do is bullshit, and because I know it's a film, I know they're doing it for money, I know they're doing it for entertainment. Whereas for some reason, Japanese films, like I believe them more because it's such a different culture. It's like a different universe over there. You know, the way they act is different, the way they do things is different, and I don't know for what reason, but like let's say a found footage film, right? I watched Grave Encounters, and we did not too long ago. We did I don't remember the name of it. We did a Japanese like found footage film like very recently as well.
Are you thinking of The Audition?
No, the one we did for Michelle's memorial there.
Oh,
Ganju or
Ganju Haunted
yeah,
Asylum.
that's right. Because the American ones, I always think, oh, this is just it's fake because it's for clicks. Whereas the Japanese, I'm like, oh, are they really wanting? It probably is for clicks, but I don't know. There's just something about it that makes me like believe it more for some reason. And I think you're
That's a good
right.
point.
I think they put more emphasis on characters and story rather than action and scares. So that helps their movies a lot. Like All of Us Are Dead, like you said, Train to Busan is a good example as well. There are a few. I know you didn't like it, but the One Cut of the Dead was kind of the same way. I just like their style of story, but I love American films too. So it's not to say one is better than the other. It's just we also tend to see their best stuff. That's something I tell a lot
That's
of
true.
people. Like we only pick out their absolute best,
Yeah.
you know, whereas we watch everything that's American. So we just have there's a lot of great shit, but there's a lot of bad shit too, which we don't watch the bad Japanese shit. That's just the way it is, right?
Yeah, you know, the good point. The bad everything does not
Everything.
get on Tubi.
That's right.
Yeah, it's who knows where it goes, but it's definitely not on Tubi or on Shudder or anything like that.
That's right. So when we think of all the countries, we think of the best of France, we think of the best of Japan, we think of the best of all these countries, but we don't get their crap. And I don't know if they get our, you know, the American crap, or they just get, you know, The Exorcist and Jaws and Halloween. And
Yeah.
I'm curious if,
Dude, I would love someone to write in.
yeah, yeah, for sure, that would be awesome. So let us know. Do you get American crap, or is it just like the best movies that come out to other countries? And the final question this week, in honor of Chuck, what food pairing would you go with this movie? I love Japanese food, so it's easy as hell for me. I would go with the fucking sushi platter with a few appetizers, something like fried shrimp and like chicken dough balls and that kind of stuff. I absolutely love Asian food, so I'd make an Asian feast of this one.
Yeah, for sure. I love Japanese food as well. I'm going to a fucking hibachi grill, and
Yeah.
we're getting sushi, we're getting fucking scallops, we're getting fried rice, we're getting fucking everything, we're getting egg rolls, and we're just fucking going crazy.
Is Benihana a hibachi place?
Yeah.
Okay, because I had one walking distance from my hotel my first night in Texas, and I considered it because I've never been to a Benihana, but I just didn't want to be that guy, you know, like just there alone.
Well, I mean, you don't have to sit at the hibachi table. You can sit at a regular table.
Oh, I didn't know they even had.
Yeah.
I thought it was just hibachi. So
no, well, I mean, the same people make it. You just don't sit at the.
you don't get the
grill.
show.
You don't get. Yeah, you don't get. They don't throw eggs at you and shit.
Yeah.
I always try to catch that fucking piece of broccoli when they toss it at me too. I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, but I definitely love that shit, but in a group.
Hell yeah.
not.
Give me some of that yum yum sauce, man. I'm pouring it all over.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for the questions. We could not do this segment without you. So that is our show for the week. Thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. Of course, like I said before, you can follow us on all social media at the Horror Squad Podcasts or on Discord. Just ask us for a link. We will be happy to let you in. It is absolutely free. We post behind the scenes stuff. We talk about what episodes, we have discussions about horror movies, our next events, and all that stuff. And it has the greatest group of people anywhere. And I cannot tell you enough how much I love being part of that group. And of course, you can buy our merch, tpublic.com/the Horror Squad podcast. So we got all sorts of shirts. We are starting to think with some new shirts. So definitely tune into that. And of course, start thinking of those 1970s lists. We love to get listeners' input for our ultimate list. So start thinking of your top 10, send it to any of us or to any of our official channels, and we will add it to that. That'll be in approximately a month. Next week, we will be doing George A. Romero's Day of the Dead, as picked by Todd. So really looking forward to that. You know, we're all big George Romero fans. So thank you very much and have a good one. Bye.